Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about a couple of fantasy books that I think do something really interesting with their world building. First off is Under the Pendulum Sun by Jeanette. It's a story about Victorian missionaries in fairyland. This book is really interesting and unusual in a lot of ways, and the whole premise is brilliantly original. But what I want to focus on today is the Pendulum Sun that's significant enough to make it into the book's title. In the magical fairyland where the book is set, the sun isn't like in our world, a blazing ball of gas that the world orbits round, spinning to create night and day. Instead, the sun moves overhead like a pendulum, swinging back and forth. Depending on where you are in the world, you would get different experiences of night and day, with people at the ends of the swing getting a fairly short day and then a really long night, and the people in the middle basically getting 2 daylight periods for everyone that somebody at either end would get. I won't go into how seasons work, but this is explored and explained in the book. Why I think this book is worth highlighting is because, again, this is a novel concept, but also because it sets up the strangeness of the other world. Even something as fundamental as day and night doesn't follow the rules we'd expect. Right from the offset, the world seems strange, and this different sun makes it clear this isn't just another version of Earth somewhere. This is somewhere wholly new. Other things play into this as well, like the fact that the moon is basically a giant anglerfish swimming through the sky, and there are other strange elements of world building showing up throughout the book, but their strangeness is expected because it's been established from the very start, from the very title of the book, that this is an utterly alien and bizarre world. We take day and night for granted as something we just know will continue to happen. This book takes away that certainty and tells us that the very foundations of our reality no longer apply and that we can't rely on anything. I've read fantasy books that show strange new worlds, but this is the only one I can think of that starts with something so fundamental to show that strangeness. The next book I want to talk about is Rivers of London, or should I say this whole series. In the first Rivers of London book, Peter Grant is an officer in the London Metropolitan Police who is standing watch over a crime scene when a ghost appears and tells him he's a witness of the crime. Peter is flung into this world of magic and river spirits and ends up part of the Met Police's Magical Crimes Division. The books are a lot of fun, and are essentially part fantasy, part crime novel. Why I want to highlight this book is the way Peter reacts to the discovery that magic is real. He basically goes, I need to figure out how this works. So he uses one of the best tools we have for figuring out things, the scientific method. He creates experiments and records the results to try and understand how all of this magic stuff works. As an example, it's revealed that magic can mess with complex electronics. So if you have a phone in your pocket while you do spells, chances are you're going to fry the phone. So he does experiments to figure out how much magic, what sort of distance, what happens under different circumstances. And he figures out that if you take the battery out of the phone, it will be fine. And this becomes important for the plot of later books. I find it interesting to see a fantasy book that doesn't go, oh, magic is real, so science is clearly wrong, but instead goes, magic is real and clearly has a tangible effect on the world, so we can use science to study this. There's another character in these books who's a doctor who uses brain scans to figure out what's going on inside the heads of people who perform magic, and they do autopsies of magical creatures to try and understand them better. And I think that's fascinating in a book series that's set in the modern day, that the characters would use these modern tools to try and understand magic better. It's never that magic and science are in conflict. Science can be used to analyse magic, just like it can be used to analyse everything else. It's not a completely unique approach, but it's still an unusual one, and it's handled really, really well in these books. World building isn't necessarily the most important factor in writing a fantasy book, but it can have a huge impact when it's done either particularly well or particularly badly. What both of these books do is try to approach it from a new angle, doing something which is different from the other books on the shelves. And that's important as a writer, because doing something different in your world is what makes a reader sit up and take notice. But doing it in a way that's consistent matters. The rules of magic that Peter figures out in Rivers of London form a consistent understanding of magic, and the strangeness of the Pendulum Sun fits with the general strangeness of the Fairylands. Both of the books take a completely different approach, but each feels true to itself. So those are my two examples of fantasy books, and I'm sure I'll think of more, and I will also do another of these videos soon talking about some examples of sci-fi books with interesting world building. Hopefully that's been useful and interesting. If you have any other good suggestions or books that you think are great examples of world building, please leave a note in the comment. And as always, like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.